You're listening to the podcast for all of the news, notes, and breakdowns for your Ohio State Buckeyes. This is Sons of the Shoe with Nick Wilson and Spencer German.
Sons of the Shoe rides again. Nick Wilson, Spencer German, back with you, actually, on my own show, on our own show. As always, make sure to follow the show on Apple, Spotify, 923thefan.com, the free Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts. Have I mentioned Apple? And, of course, follow along on the 923 The Fan YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe. Please also make sure to go ahead and like our videos. These things help us a lot here. But hi, Spencer. How you doing, buddy?
Running on minimal sleep, but that's life with an almost 2-year-old, so it is what it is. But I'm good. Otherwise, I'm actually, I know on your show for 92 Through the Fan, you've had a chance to kind of reflect on your time away. I want for the loyal Sons of the Shoe audience for you to just give us a little insight into how your vacation was. Which, by the way, how selfish of you to take a vacation at a very important time of year for Ohio State. I mean, you knew when the spring game was, and you decided to go to Jamaica anyway. What the hell's wrong with you?
By the way, are we calling the fans of the show shoers? I was just thinking about that. Like, do we call them sons? Well, because I don't want to gender it. So shoers is you can have any kind of shoe there. I think we should call their shoers. Now, getting back to it, I'll be honest with you. I do try and plan my life around sporting events. It's pathetic. It really is. Like, I knew the Cavs were going to be in a first-round series. We knew that they were going to make a 7-game series, so I had to kind of plan around that. Had to plan around the NFL draft. Obviously, tried to plan around the beginning of the baseball season, but then missed the home opener. But I now, having experienced Jamaica with just me and my beautiful wife, I will tell you, that's out the window. Any chance I get to go to Jamaica with that bombshell, I'm going every damn time. It was, to say it was heaven. Like, here's what you got to understand. Like, Ness got sick one day. We didn't really know anybody there. We made 1 or 2 friends, but like, we were still kind of timid because it was our first time out of country. And so, like, the next time I know it's going to be better. This was a really fun time, though. But here's how fun it was. I watched, as somebody who's pretty obsessed with sports, I always have either sports talk radio on or I have something on the TV. Sometimes I'm doing both things. I watched maybe 5 minutes of sports the entire time. Now, I did watch some Guardians. I shouldn't say just 5 minutes. I was able to watch some Guardians because I have MLB TV. But in terms of like the spring game, at Saturday in the middle of the day, you know where my bum ass was? I was inhaling secondhand marijuana smoke, drinking Bob Marley's as if they were water and I was a fish, and getting absolute baked by the sun. And I regret nary a damn thing. It was, to say the best vacation ever, I don't remember enough of my vacations because I'm getting older now. I'm in the mid-stage of my life. But I will tell you, as vacations go, it was me, my beautiful wife, the sun, the waves, the booze, the free food, and that was much better than the Ohio State spring game. All due respect to Ohio State.
No, I obviously just busting your balls a little bit. I think it's great that you got a chance to get away. I know how stressful your life can be at times and everything that you deal with on a daily basis. So, no, I was glad you got a chance to get away, even though you missed the Ohio State spring game, but it's okay. I had us covered.
You know what's funny about that?
Covered. I was part of the 80,000 strong that was in attendance.
What's funny about that is when we were texting about, all right, when's our first show back going to be? What is it going to look like? You were like, I want you to react to the Ohio State spring game. And I was like Magic Johnson. I'm like, I'm not going to be there. I got jack shit on the Ohio State spring game. I'll go back and watch it if I have to. But yeah, all due respect, I heard it was great. I heard there was a lot of quarterback scuttlebutt, which I'm always interested in hearing. I know we're going to make fun of Kyle McCord in a moment, but Jamaica was better.
Yeah. That's
like, I could totally see myself being a perma vacationer. You know, like if money weren't an obstacle, I could see myself living in Florida half the year. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even love Florida that much, but living somewhere warm, because, and especially tropical.
You're going to be a snowbird, basically.
Like, you know how much, okay, I watched minuscule amounts of sports. By the pool, I did have the Guardians game on, and then I'd come back in to kind of dry off and relax a little bit and have a couple more drinks and maybe a bite to eat, and I'd watch the game on the phone. But mostly, when we were in the hotel room, in the moments where Ness was asleep and I couldn't sleep yet, you know what I watched? They have the Discovery Channel or the Travel Channel, one of those things, had we moved to a tropical island thing. And I'll be honest with you, dude, I don't know if it was a secondhand
House Hunters, Dominican Republic or whatever.
But dude, it's like House Hunters, place you've never effing heard of in the tropics. And I was like, I'm there. I'm like, wait. So the American dollar goes 20 times as far in. It's not Botswana because that's in Africa, but like whatever the Botswanian equivalent is in the tropics. And I was like, I think we should do it. Like maybe it's the booze talking, maybe it's the Bob Marleys, maybe it's the rum. And then Vanessa would be like, well, we got to get the girls a good education. We got to, set them up for success. And I'm like, do we though?
So it's funny. Our like one sort of tropical trip that we did was our honeymoon in 2019, my wife and I. And we went to Barbados, and we sort of did like our wedding was in the summer, but we like prolonged. We waited to do our honeymoon until it was like colder, because obviously being in Cleveland, like you want to take advantage of that. Oh, yeah. And like we actually played it right because we did our honeymoon like it was like the last week of December going into January. So we were actually there for like New Year's and all that, which is kind of cool. But we basically like beat COVID, like because COVID obviously ended up coming late that next year, 2020, like in March. But we like just got it in before any of that stuff hit, which was good. But anyway,
quite literally,
it was like towards the end of the NFL season, and I was like, there was these people at the pool the one day who were talking about like, oh, we're gonna go into town and try to watch some of these NFL games. And I was like, that sounds like a fun idea. And my wife was like, no, we don't need to do that. And then we ended up not going. And it was like, I didn't actually feel like I missed anything. It was like week 18 or week 17 of the NFL season that year. It was like, I was looking for my one sports fix, and I didn't end up doing it. It was okay. It all worked out.
Like people our age are really obsessed with homesteading and, living off the land. Why would you do that in Ohio? I love this state. I really do. Like, there's so much of every little part of this state as a little piece of me, because like I had 2 years in Dayton growing up, in Kettering, and I went to school at Bowling Green, and I'm obviously from, Lodi, Medina, Akron, and I work in Cleveland and all this kind of stuff. But like, if I'm going to go live off the land, it's going to be somewhere in Puerto Rico. It's going to be somewhere out there where your boy can just live the life. And I'll be honest, Island Nick, totally different guy. Island Nick is a surfer, even though, I'm not really built for that. My center mass probably, dude, reefer all the time. Island Nick is, I would say Island Nick, like I will say Jamaica Nick, a little different than Island Nick, because I only was there for a couple days. Jamaica Nick is a better person. Just nicer, more thoughtful, friendlier to be around. That guy probably is the best version of me that I will ever be, because Ohio Nick, man, that guy's stressed out and kind of a dick. That guy's got no room for anybody's guff, and we'll argue about anything at any time, just because that's how Ohio Nick is.
Well, I'm glad that you got a chance to get away. And I think you needed it. You deserved it. That was good. I can tell you that the biggest, I would say, note from the spring game was obviously centered around the quarterbacks and who looked good, who didn't. I think on one hand, you had Devin Brown, I think, kind of asserting himself as the maybe truest challenger to Will Howard. Will Howard looked really good, but I also kind of said after the fact, Nick, that I felt like Ohio State kind of told you who the starter really is kind of slotted to be in the way that they play these quarterbacks. Because Will Howard basically played like 2-3 series and then was done. Like, they didn't play him the rest of the day. It was like, okay, you're clearly trying to protect him. You consider him your top guy. So I thought while Devin Brown maybe asserted himself as being part of that quarterback competition that they keep pushing down our throats, I thought that Julian Sayin, who was the week leading up to it, there was just so much hype about him, and it was like, oh, he looks so good, maybe he can take the job from Will Howard. And I talked about that on the one episode I did sort of solo, and yeah, I thought he maybe had some cold water poured on him in terms of that, just because, and it's nothing against him. I just think like there was still some rawness. He threw an interception. He was late getting the ball a couple times. And so I think he's still seeing, and to his credit, like the Ohio State defense is so good. That was the other big talking point people had after the game was like, this defense is just amazing. And the secondary, especially, I mean, they call themselves BIA, best in America, for that reason. So I don't know that's all on him, but I thought that was kind of, those were the two big, I think, sticking points that you didn't get a chance to kind of soak in. But yeah, I think Will Howard, to me, feels like he still is the obvious leader in the clubhouse, just based on how he was played.
So I will say, after seeing who got how many snaps and what, with the Devin Brown thing, I'm more convinced that Ohio State gave him the bowl game and gave him as many reps as you saw in the spring game as, hey, as almost insurance for him that if he does change his mind on the whole I want to be here thing, he at least now has tape to go to teams and say, this is what I can do. And this is the progression from that bowl game, from the regular season as well, to what you see now.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know that was their focal thing, but I do think it, for a guy who said, I want to stay here and compete, and that still might be the case. The spring portal's open. We'll see. I thought it was also kind of we want to give you more tread to show what you can do in case the job doesn't go your way. Like, that's not option A, but if option B comes up, I kind of, that's at least what I took for them of trying to do him a solid, because he's been a good soldier. He could have transferred out in December, and it kind of would have left them stuck in a bad spot.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to look at it. And we obviously talked about that at the time, being why it felt like they were trying to do right by him almost before he had maybe a decision to make on his future. And you're right. Like, he said all the right things. He's done all the right things. He's embraced the competition. He's not just backing down from it. I think he has, on some level, like, cemented himself as, okay, yeah, he's probably the next best ready quarterback on this roster. I just think Will Howard's not coming here to sit. I understand there's some fierce competition there. I think the young guys are still kind of developing. I did think, too, like Aaron Nolan, he was the only quarterback to lead 2 scoring drives. He didn't throw a touchdown, but I think the only quarterback that did throw a touchdown was Devin Brown. So I think I just think, like, reading the tea leaves and all this, to your point, I think that's kind of what they're doing with Devin Brown is, hey, we're giving you opportunities to kind of show what you got in case you do decide that you don't want to be part of the competition anymore. And I think they're kind of protecting Will Howard because he's supposed to be the guy. So I don't know. I know people were still encouraged by it all, and they were like, oh, spring game. Now we know that it really is a wide open competition. I kind of took a different approach because I just felt like they kind of told us who the starter was without telling us who the starter was.
I think the reaction to the spring game, which I have seen, the reaction to the spring game was everything I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Like, there was nothing that surprised me. And Ohio State, the traditional media down there, and this is not a shot, by the way, it's just more of an observation. I'm the king of taking shots, but no, this is not a shot. They're definitely pushing it's a quarterback competition thing. Listen, let me put it this way. I still am not certain that all the guys you saw play in that game at quarterback are going to be here when the season rolls around. I would be shocked if there were 5 quarterbacks at Ohio State. I actually think the odd man out would be Keenholz, because I think he could go to like a Western Kentucky or a BG, and I think he could play today. You know me, I'm part of the
you're trying to get him to come to BG. I heard you slipping in there.
Well, here's the thing. I hate Bowling Green's head coach, so no, I don't really want that for my boy Lincoln. But I still think there's a domino to fall there. I don't know anything, but it's funny because usually the message boards are a little bit ahead of podcasts and a little bit ahead of the media. I have not seen that on the message boards. I am not convinced that all 5 quarterbacks are going to be here. I think Keenholz is the obvious man out. Saying with the Bill O'Brien connection in Boston would make sense. And obviously, I mean, there's going to be an injury given all these spring games, there will be a quarterback injury at some point. It would make sense if Devin Brown says, I gave it a go. Yeah. I think this is Will Howard's job. Now, it'd be awesome if he stayed. Like, Devin Brown decides to stay and, hey, I'm going to be here in case of injury, honestly, I think he would have Ohio State fans through the roof with that kind of stuff. But I do think it's Will Howard's job, and I think now it becomes about, do you carry 4 or 5 quarterbacks? Because if you carry 5 quarterbacks, which I think is awesome, like if you can carry that many, it's going to be really interesting to keep those guys engaged and ready for the year after Will Howard, as you really only have him for 1 year.
I'll say this.
Dude, I almost threw out the fucking phone number. Oh, my God. To the radio station, which we are loosely affiliated with, but we don't have a call-in number here. We've got more reaction to the quarterback thing, by the way, including Spencer would like to talk about the old Ohio State quarterback, and we'll go Portland as well with Ohio State. That's next on Sons of the Shoe. But first, a quick word from our sponsors.